Howdy, y'all. I know it's been way too long between episodes, and I'm committed to not letting that happen again. But we're back with a vengeance with this episode featuring Dr. Ted Mettetal from Athens, Texas. And he has such an interesting and inspirational story about what he has done in the past and what he is currently doing in Athens, in Henderson County, and all over the world, actually. He is the founder of Hope Springs Water, and it's just a great story about dedication, purpose, being willing, using the talents that you have to and just help people. And he points out so many times in this episode about just people that he's helped through, again, being a physician, having people come up to him and tell him stories about what he did for them in the past or their family. And now he's doing that again, like I said, all over the world. So I hope you will enjoy the episode. And even more importantly, I hope you will look up and seek out Hope Springs Water. Check out their website and find ways that you can either help or contribute to a great ministry and a great cause. If you like the episode and you want to hear more things like it, please like, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. I would really appreciate it. Here we go with Ted.
I've been back up to the hospital, go down on the floor or wherever in surgery or whatever. I don't know anybody, and they don't know me. Sir, can I help you?
Yes. So if I went to the fire station that I was at the last 16 years of my career, odds are that whoever comes to the door, they'll be saying, "You want your blood pressure checked?"
Or what do you want? Get your blood sugar checked? What's
and
going on?
Maybe somebody that's been around a while will come around the corner. Oh, hey. But,
I saw a couple of the old-timer nurses, and they were both told me they were quitting. They were leaving, going doing something else. And I tell you, there was a lot of burnout with COVID, big time.
I imagine so.
Burnout with COVID. I mean, they just got themselves worked to death. Mm-hmm. And plus seeing people that come in looking pretty decent, and just, in a matter of days, they just roll over and die, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're just like, that'd work on you. That kind of work on your mentality, like your emotions.
From what I heard, almost like a wartime assignment.
PTSD has been a big problem in nurses that had to deal with all that during COVID. I mean, tons of them have just stopped being nurses. I mean, they just quit. They said, I got to go do something else.
Melissa's got a gal that she used to work with at Sundown. Her daughter was a nurse and made a lot of money and was good at it and worked for a long time, and she's cleaning houses now, and she said she loves it.
Well, it's stress free.
Yeah.
When you're a nurse and you're the person there and you got a patient dying and nobody knows what to do, and that's stressful.
It is.
I can't imagine. I mean, I'm kind of glad I wasn't involved in all that. I was involved at the street level. I mean, I was seeing patients in the...
Right, but you've done the same thing, as being a medic or a first responder. Okay, you push them in and you pass them out to the next one.
You got COVID, you've got pneumonia, and I knew they were going to die when I told them. I didn't tell them they were going to die, but I said, you're really sick, and you got big problems, and you got to get to the hospital now. Yeah. And of course, then they go over to the emergency room of the hospital, and they got no place to put them. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was awful. It was the worst time I can remember. Of course, Doug and I had both retired about 4 months or so before all that hit, and we weren't really doing anything in medicine. And then we just looked at each other and said, "Man, we can't stand over here on the sidelines when the worst health disaster in our careers, and in fact, in the last nearly 100 years, is happening right now. We got to get in the game, man." So we did.
How'd y'all do that?
Well, we started that East Texas Community Clinic. It was a federally qualified health clinic. It's still not federally funded yet, but we've been at it now for, what is this, our 4th year we're working on?
Okay.
We've been doing this. Of course, we did it for the first few years. We're doing it basically without pay. He and I are. We pay most of the other doctors, but we've got a family practice residency program in it with 12 residents, and got some teachers in there, and got several doctors, got a pediatrician working for us. And if we ever get our federal funding, and they keep telling us any day, because they've been telling us that now for 2 years, if we ever get that done, get the funding like we want, then we'll be able to, we want to start a psychiatric, bring some psychologists and psychiatrists in that we can pay with federal You have to get grants, apply for grants and that sort of thing to get all that done. But it works out pretty good. It's really kept me busy. It got real busy in the last year because we had trouble keeping practitioners. We had trouble keeping doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs working and seeing patients. Because the purpose of a federally qualified health clinic is to take care of those people that kind of fall in the cracks. Mm-hmm. Now we'll see anybody. As a federal program, anybody walks through our doors, we see them. Whether they can pay, whether they can't pay, whether they got insurance, whether they don't have insurance, we see them. Mm-hmm. Basically, it was designed to take care of those people who are uninsured or underinsured and weren't able to get access to care. And we've done that, and we still see Medicare, Medicaid, and some insurance, but a lot of the insurance plans that are out there now are just terrible. They pay less than what Medicaid pays, and Medicaid rates are still based on like 1987, fees, and mm-hmm. It's awful. Can't pay your expenses with Medicaid rates, but anyway, it's all good, and it's getting better. As soon as what'll happen is once we become a federally qualified health clinic, and we've passed all the stuff, we've jumped through all their hoops, we filled out their 760-page forms and all this kind of stuff a couple, 2 or 3 times, and we've had the people come in and walk through and examine us and ask all kinds of stupid questions, and we've done all that, and they tell us that we passed everything, and we're all good. You know what's been holding us up for the last 6 months?
Please tell me. I'm sure it's something monumental.
It's typical federal government crap. The clinic that we're in right now is in Gun Barrel City. Well, the zip code for Gun Barrel City is the same as Maybank. So, on one of the application forms, somebody put in Maybank, and on the other one, somebody put in Gun Barrel City. And we've been screwing with that for 6 months. Same zip code, same address, same building, same everything, except, well, you've got Maybank here, you got Gun Barrel City here. But it's the same place.
It's Texas. It's Cedar Creek Lake.
Oh my gosh, you can't imagine how much confusion that's caused those people. They can't imagine. How could that happen? How could that be?
You're telling me there are 2 towns with the same zip code?
Same zip code, and an address from one town is the same place as an address from the other town? Is that what you're telling me?
You can't fool me. There's something sketchy going on.
You're trying to pull one over on us, aren't you? Yeah, I'm telling you, it's great.
So in case I haven't introduced him, which I haven't yet, I'm sitting at worldwide headquarters of Hope Springs Water with Dr. C. Ted Mettetal. What is it about the professions that you go by the first initial, the middle name, and the last name?
My mother did that.
Okay, C. Ted.
See, my first name's Charles, and Charles was my grandfather on my dad's side. My father's father was Charles. His actual name was Charlie, and that was his legal name.
On his birth certificate, Charlie.
On his birth certificate was Charlie, and no middle name, just Charlie Mettetal. Okay. And he was worked in a sawmill his whole life.
Where at?
Benton, Arkansas. Ted was my mother's brother. Okay. And of course, I spent most of my time with my mother, so what do you think I was called? I was called Ted. And so the only time I've ever been called Charles was when I was in the military.
Okay.
And
Charles?
Charles or Chuck.
Or when you were in trouble?
Yeah. No, actually, I was Ted. In fact, we had a friend. They called me Teddy the Rooster.
Oh.
There was some Russian diplomat or something. His name was Tedorowski.
Okay.
And so this guy decided I was Teddy the Rooster. I was fairly young then, 26, 27.
So, tell me your dad's name.
Julian Wayne Mettetal.
What? Julian Wayne Mettetal.
Julian. And I think I may have told you that before.
I never remember that. You very well may have. But my name is Paul Wayne.
No
Julian.
way.
Yes.
For real.
Paul Wayne.
I'll be darned.
Paul Wayne or PW or Paul Wayne?
My dad's Julian Wayne Mettetal. And my older brother is Julian Wayne Mettetal Jr. I'm not sure where the Julian came. Well, I'll tell you. My ancestors, my great grandfather came over from France, from southern France, with a group of Germans on a boat when he was like 16 or 17, all by himself. No fun with their family. Yeah. Got on this boat, came over to the United States, settled in central Arkansas with these Germans. And the Germans were doing meat packing, the Finkbinders and stuff like that. They were packing meats and raising animals to do meat packing stuff, make franks and all that sort of thing. Yeah. And he my grandfather, he had these kids, and him and 2 or 3 of his kids all died with tuberculosis, and so did his wife back up in there in central Arkansas. Wow. They were fairly young. And then my grandfather grew up and worked in the sawmill his whole life. He probably was positive for TB, just didn't get real sick with it.
Right.
TB killed a lot of people back then. It was a nasty disease. It was a nasty disease.
A lot of things killed a lot of people back in the day.
Yeah.
And what about your mother's side?
I think she'd be my great-great-grandmother, was a full-blooded Cherokee Indian. She was on the Trail of Tears walk from over on the East Coast and came all the way across and then up into the Oklahoma Territory and up in there back in those days. And then she met a guy from, I think, Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. He was from Ireland, and they got married. And then my grandmother was a product of that marriage. And my grandmother looked like a full-blooded Indian. Really? I mean, she had the hawk nose and the beady black eyes and the black hair and the whole 9 yards. And then my mother had blue eyes.
Irish blue eyes.
Yeah. So anyway, it was interesting.
Suppose in my family history, I think there's some Irish, English, Welsh. Apparently they weren't well thought of coming over from
Ireland.
Yeah, to the States.
They got a lot of discrimination. The Irish people did. Who knows why? I mean, why are people prejudiced? It's something that gets in your head,
right,
or something somebody tells you.
Yeah. I guess back when it wasn't common to be exposed to people of many different walks of life, different, or races, or nationalities, or whatever you call it. I mean,
I think that's a good
different
observation. They're just different.
You can
and anything that's different is suspect.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be. That's your first.
That's your first thing. Your first thought. Your first inkling is, I think this will be dangerous. They're different from me.
Right. Through 10,000 generations, that was probably the case. I mean, that was what kept people alive, was being wary of people that were unknown and different.
Sometimes I think we carry it to an extreme.
Right. You're in not Bentonville, Arkansas. Benton.
It's 25 or 30 miles from Little Rock.
Okay. Sort
of south and west of Little Rock.
Okay.
It's actually, Benton is right next door to Bauxite. You ever heard of Bauxite, Arkansas?
I have not.
The only functional aluminum mine in the North America.
Really?
Is in Bauxite, Arkansas. And bauxite is the ore that they extract the aluminum
name the town
from.
after it. That makes sense.
Yeah. The Alcoa and Reynolds Aluminum both have got major presence in Bauxite, Arkansas. Right. The little dinky town of nothing.
So what did you do when you were growing up?
My dad was a teacher. Well, actually, he started off as the manager of a bookstore at a small college in Monticello, Arkansas. And then he went back to school when I was probably 9 or 10 years old. He went back to school and at Ole Miss, and he got his master's degree in business administration, and then started teaching at this small school. It was Arkansas A&M College forever and ever. And so I grew up there, and I worked in the tomato fields and worked in the rice fields and that sort of thing in southeast Arkansas growing up as a kid, and played all the sports and played football, because in a small school, you got to
do it all.
we didn't have enough kids on our football team to even scrimmage. I think we had 18 or 19 kids on our football team, and we weren't smart enough to play six-man football. Yeah. So we played 11-man football just because we could.
Oh, by golly!
But we were all a bunch of farm boys, and so we were pretty tough.
Yeah.
We could usually beat the other team to the other end at fourth quarter when we were changing ends,
Right. You had staying power.
That's right.
I mean, what do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, what did you think about then?
It's interesting, but for most of my life growing up, I loved to swim. I loved the water. I was on a swim team.
They had a swim team?
Yeah, we had a
in Arkansas?
Yeah.
Like in an outdoor pond?
Well, we actually had a city pool now, and I got that out.
A lot of places, a lot of small towns Athens used to have a city pool. Yeah. They can't get one.
When I first came to town, they had a city pool.
Yeah.
And they filled it in and have not gone back to revisit that at all. And I think it's a liability issue anymore.
I guess.
As much as anything. But, when I was a kid, we had a city pool and a swim team, and we taught swim lessons and water safety and, all that kind of life-saving and all that kind of stuff. I took my life-saving there, and I was a lifeguard at the pool, became the swim team coach when I was in college. I coached the swim team. No, it was great. It was a great place to grow up. I think the population of the town was about 3,500, and maybe 3,500. In the little college that was out there, it's kind of, there was, I think they may have had 2,000 kids in that school or something, maybe on a good day.
That's a lot for a 3,500 population town.
Yeah. But it was a school that had a really great music program, so a lot of people, and they had a good education program. And the thing that was the real draw was they had a fantastic forestry program. And I mean, there were kids that came from all over the country to be a part of that forestry program they had there. And they would go to these national conclaves. This little dinky school in southeast Arkansas would go to these national conclaves, and they'd compete against Georgia and Alabama and University of Arkansas and beat them every time. And all those competitions that they did. And finally, the University of Arkansas, about last year, the year I left and went to medical school, University of Arkansas decided they needed that forestry program.
Yeah. Bought them out?
So they just took them over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they said, okay, you're now the University of Arkansas at Monticello, Arkansas, which was fine. I mean, it helped the school.
Yeah.
It got them some more funding, got them some more, got them a little better respect and position. And plus, they could beat Georgia and Alabama, and nobody got upset anymore.
Right, I get you. It's all the optics.
That's right.
So when did you decide to go to medical school? Was it like a given? Was it like, I want to be a doctor when I grow up?
No, actually, I always wanted to be a marine biologist.
Marine biologist.
And the reason I wanted to be a marine biologist is I grew up watching Jacques Cousteau on television.
I did too.
And what was Mike something or other on Sea Hunt.
Yes.
And I loved those shows. I loved those shows. And I would just, anytime I'd have an opportunity to watch one of them, I was going to be watching one of those shows. And that's what I always wanted to be. And when I went to college, my declared major was marine biology. Okay. And as I got further into it, I began to realize that most marine biologists wind up counting salamanders in some backwoods swamp in southern Arkansas. And I said, I'm not sure I want to do that.
I was thinking about it this morning. I think about him often. He's an old real estate kind of guru, but a big practitioner. And he said, he's so funny and dry, but he would say, if what you're going to college for ends in ology, just be aware that ology is Greek for no job. So it ends in ology.
I like that one. That's a good one.
There, but
anyway, I had my I guess I was majoring in biology at the time. And so my counselor, my advisor, was a biology professor. His name was Hopgood. And he had a terrible stutter. And he was a wonderful man. I just loved him to death. But anyway, after about the end of my second year, I was going to and talking to him, and I was talking about marine biology, and I just wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do. And what else do you think I might be able to do? And he looked at me and he said, I tell you, you need to be a doctor.
there you go.
And I said,
do what?
Well, I never thought about that before. And I thought about it, prayed about it, and said, well, I've got the education for it, and it's certainly a need for it, and I certainly like people. I always enjoyed being around people. And I said, well, yeah, why not? I'll see what it's like. And so I started kind of molding more of my classes around going down that pathway. Mm-hmm. I applied for medical school after my third year of college and got in. Here we go.
I'm gonna be a doctor.
I guess I'm going to be a doctor. Then at the end of my first year in medical school, I was going to school on student loans. Didn't have any money. Richard Nixon at that time cut out all the student loan programs and didn't replace them with anything.
Really?
And so there I sat thinking, what am I going to do? I mean, I can't work. I got too much time. I've got to spend here studying and going to class and doing all the things that I'm responsible for here. I was worried that I was going to have to drop out of medical school. About that time, my roommate, the guy that I had gone to school with at A&M, at Arkansas A&M, and had a good buddy of mine, and we got into medical school at the same time, and we were rooming together in medical school. And we got to talking, and we got to studying and calling around, and found out that the military had just started a health professions scholarship program in which they would pay your tuition and books and fees and give you, I think it was $400 a month or something at that time, which is not a large amount of money, as you might imagine. But $400 a month, and to pay you, to allow you to get through medical school, and then you paid them back a year for the time that you were doing that. And so we went down.
Service.
Military, Navy.
So if it took you 4 years to get through, then you did
Paid
4
them
years
back
of
4
service.
years.
Okay.
Now residencies and internships and training programs didn't count for that. So anyway, we went down to the Naval Recruiter's office, that week and said, "Hey, tell us about this health profession scholarship program. We got fees and tuition coming up here in a couple of months, and we got nothing." The guy told us all about it and signed us up, and here we went. We were Navy. So we both spent, I guess, 4 years in the Navy.
You didn't go back to college?
No, I went to medical, still in medical school.
Okay.
That what they call that TAD, temporary additional duty. Okay. So I was in the military, but my assignment was to go to medical school.
Okay.
So and 6 weeks, I think it was 6 weeks a year. Yeah, 6 weeks a year I had to do active duty and go into the military. And I worked in naval hospitals for 2 or 3 times. One in San Diego and one in San Francisco and one in Washington, D.C. I went to the National Naval Medical Center in Washington, D.C. Spent that 6 week period each year to get that active duty time you have to get when you're on. It was in the Naval Reserve. We had active reserves, and so ready reserves, I guess they called it. Yeah, so we had to learn how to be a Navy doctor, which was really not that hard. You just go down to the dispensary go down to the exchange, Navy exchange, and tell them, "What do I need to be a doctor?"
Okay.
Okay, come over here. We'll fix you up.
Put you in this line.
Yeah.
So anyway. It seemed like it worked out for everybody.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was a good time, and then of course about 4 years in the military, I did an internship at Naval Regional Medical Center in Oakland, and it was awesome. San Francisco area, doing a residence and an internship, and then I had to go do a sea tour, or what they call sea duty. It was with the Seabees is who I did, but during my time in Oakland, I met my wife. And,
isn't that strange?
So at the end of that year, we got married, and she went with me over to Spain with the Navy, and then went to Puerto Rico for 2 years. So we had a great time. Spent in the Caribbean and in Spain, and traveled all over Europe, and it was good.
I bet so. How did y'all meet?
She was a Navy nurse. Yeah, she was a Navy nurse, and she had gotten into the Navy pretty much for the same reason I had. She was going to school on some loans and scholarships, and she decided she would just join the Navy and see the world, and so she did, at least for a year.
Right. See the world.
See the world. Join the Navy, see the world. Wasn't that their byline?
I think it might have been. All right, you're traveling the world. You're a doctor. You're a doctor now. What happens after your tour is up?
Okay, so most doctors, starting about that time, maybe a little even before the 1970s when I got out of the military, most doctors did some additional training, residency type training, to kind of get a little more informational, more training, more education about whatever area that you're wanting to kind of spend your time. And so I wanted to do that. And the best family practice, I wanted to do family practice. Now, when I went into the Navy, I had been accepted into a urology program. They figured I was going to be a urologist because I had applied for a urology internship because that was what was available. And so they accepted me into it, and they just assumed I was actually going to be a urologist. I was just looking for a place to go. Right. At the end of that, towards the end, about the middle part of that year, I guess, I told them, I said, no, I don't want to be a urologist. I mean, I enjoyed the surgery and I enjoyed all that kind of stuff, but I said, that's kind of restrictive. I mean, I don't really want to just kind of focus on that one thing. And I really liked kids. I loved kids. And I spent a lot of time in a neonatal intensive care unit and taking care of lots of really sick kids. And that's very interesting and very challenging. And so I thought, well, I think I want to go into pediatrics. And I had to make that decision kind of early on in my internship year. Then the rest of the year, I kind of rotated around. I did what we call a flexible internship. We used to call them rotating internships, where we just kind of did a little bit of everything. I did some anesthesia and some general surgery and some ENT and some pediatrics, and just kind of did something of everything. And everything I got on, I loved it. And I said, man, this is what I want to do. Right. Until I went to the next thing, and I went, no, this is what I want to do. So towards the end of the deal, I got accepted into the pediatric residency I'd applied for, and I had to go tell that guy that I didn't want to do that, and I wanted to resign that. He was not happy with me. And then I went out to the fleet at that point, and I said, I think I want to do family practice, and that's what I did when those years that I was with the fleet. And I was at a Naval Security Group activity in Puerto Rico, and then I was with the Seabees in Spain, in Southern California, and basically just took care of all their needs, them and their families. Just took care of them, just a family doc. I really
so you saw the husband, the wife, the kids. You just saw everybody and
retirees. Saw all the retirees in Puerto Rico. All the retirees had come over to the base for me to see them. And so, yeah, I mean, I took care of all age groups. I delivered a baby or two on the way to the hospital,
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of everything. And it was great. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Went to Spain. I delivered a few babies in Spain, too.
Can you be a family doctor these days? I mean, is it harder and harder?
Oh,
it seems like they always want to, like you said, they want to specialize.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that the people who are specialties, everything that a family doctor does, everything we do, is covered by another specialty. In other words, if I do obstetrics, there's obstetrician gynecologist. If I do GYN surgery, there's obstetrician gynecologist. If I do pneumonias and congestive heart failure and heart disease, there's internal medicine doctors. If I take care of kids, there's pediatricians.
That mean they're over you, or they're
no?
An adjunct?
They just took a residency program in those particular specialties. Like in family practice, we kind of did some of everything as we went through our 3-year residency program. A pediatrician might go through a 3-year residency program, and they go through all the different subspecialties of doing only pediatrics.
Okay.
They don't take care of older people. So yes, and it's a family practice program that we have here in Athens right now. Right. I mean, they've got 12 residents, and we're training them to do what we did. And we're training them to do obstetrics, because most of these kids are going to go into a fairly rural area. I mean, there's tons of rural communities who have no access to health care.
I've read that.
And so having somebody who's got knowledge and abilities in lots of different things is incredibly important. And I think everybody ought to have their own family doctor, because he's kind of your quarterback for your health care. And he may not be able to do everything you need, but he'll know who does and if you need it or not. And so that's what we try to train our family docs to do. What we say about family docs is that 80% of everything that walks through their door they can take care of. So the other 20%, you just got to know your limitations and know what to do with those people. And that's what we try to teach them to do in that family practice program.
How'd you end up in Athens, Texas?
That's an interesting story. The best family practice program in the country was at John Peter Smith, Tarrant County Hospital District in Fort Worth, because the whole thing was run by family practice docs. I think we had maybe a 3rd and a 4th year surgery resident that we kind of worked under, and we had some surgical staff, some people that were hired by the hospital. I think we had maybe one ER doc that was kind of over the entire emergency room, but family practice docs ran all that. We even ran the neurosurgical unit. I mean, we put burr holes in people's heads to let off to drain the blood and to let the pressure off. And sometimes we do it over the phone, because the neurosurgeon would be across the street.
You want this size bit, right?
He'd be across the street operating at another hospital, and we had somebody that was dying, and they needed a burr hole and needed a piece of bone taken off their skull, and he'd talk us through it on the phone.
That is awesome. It's a little bit like you're riding the ambulance, and you got the phone with Vital. I mean, same thing. You got the doctor over at Parkland and Vital, and they're telling you, do this.
Exactly. It was the same thing, except we didn't have all that. We just had a telephone.
Yeah.
It was wired.
With a long cord.
It was a wired telephone, too. In fact, sometimes it had to go through the nurse.
Right.
The nurse would be over here talking on the phone and say, he said to do this and this.
Yeah, just relay it. He said what?
He did what? You want me to do what?
I bet that was interesting work.
We used to open chests in the emergency room as family practice interns and residents. Mm-hmm. Some guy come in with a gunshot wound to the chest, and they have no blood pressure, no pulse. We'd take our knives, we'd cut a big opening in their ribs, take those rib spreaders and open it up, take our knife and scissors and open up their pericardium, and sometimes there'd be a big old hole in their heart, and we'd put like a Foley catheter and poke it in the hole, blow it up, and try to stop the flow and keep pumping blood. And that would we just give them O-negative blood, because we didn't know what their blood types were.
Right.
We did some crazy things back in the day, brother.
Yeah.
Crazy things.
They don't do those things today?
I would be surprised. Like at John Peter Smith, they have an emergency medicine fellowship there now, or residency program. So they've got ER docs that run, and ER residents that run the emergency room. Now, I'm not sure what kind of experience the family practice doctors get in that residency program anymore. They've got a full bore surgery residency there. They've got a full bore OB-GYN residency there now. I'm not sure about pediatrics, but I suspect they've got a pediatric residency there now. So I mean, they've got all the specialties represented that kind of push family practice out now.
Mm.
They still have family practice residency program. I just don't know what their experience is. I don't know. It may still be great. I don't know.
They probably ain't cracking no chests.
I bet they're not cracking any chests. The liability on it. You know, I think about that now, and I'm like, good night.
Dad, yeah.
We were crazy.
You got to do what you got to do. I mean, you're trying. I mean, what's the
downside?
I mean, for this guy.
We had one that the resident, the surgery resident. The guy came in and he had been stabbed in the chest, I guess, and stabbed right through the right ventricle or the left ventricle, I guess it was. And anyway, John, I'm not going to say his last name, but John came in. He was our senior resident. We had cracked his chest, and as John was coming down from upstairs, and he walked in, and we just gotten the chest open, and he opened up the pericardium, and there was a hole in his left ventricle, and it was just squirting blood, about that big around, just spraying out. And he took that Foley catheter and he poked it in that hole and blew it up and pulled it back and stopped it. And we kept doing hand compressions on pumping his heart and running in fluids and all this stuff. And finally, John just got frustrated, and he took his gloves off and threw them and said, "He's dead," and walked out the door. Yeah. And he walked out the door, went out to tell the family the guy was dead. So he goes out to the emergency room waiting room and tells his family this guy's dead. And while he's out there, we're still working on this guy. Well, he gets a heartbeat back. Yeah. And a blood pressure. And we're going, and John
Somebody go get John.
And John comes walking back by the door and he said, "What are you guys doing?" And we said, "John, he's got a heartbeat and a blood pressure." John says, "What?" And he says, "Let's get him upstairs." So we rolled him out of there and rolled him up to the OR upstairs and repaired the hole in his heart, fixed whatever else was wrong with him, and he maintained his blood pressure and was doing great. And we were walking out of the walking out of the operating room, and John said, "Oh no, I told his family he was dead."
Oh, God.
That was awesome.
So did he go tell him, or did he send somebody else?
Oh no, he went down and told them. He said,
I was mistaken.
He said, "I was mistaken. He's still alive." That was great. Well, we had some great times, big times.
So you're in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I was in Fort Worth, and towards the end of my residency program, I'm thinking, well, I need to find a place to hang my hat. And at first, I thought, well, I'll just stay in Fort Worth and I'll work because emergency rooms. Because as a resident, I was moonlighting and working emergency rooms at Children's Hospital and various and sundry minor emergency clinics.
What year was
clinic.
this now?
That would have been between 78 and 79. I got finished up I started in 79 and I finished up in 82. So it'd have been 81, 82.
Okay.
And looking around for maybe a place to just work emergency clinics or working maybe one of the family practice clinics there that we knew of in the Fort Worth area. And I started kind of going around and looking at other places. And I'm from Arkansas, and my family was still in Arkansas. I thought, well, we'll go up and look at Arkansas. Went up and looked at a few places in Arkansas, and it wasn't real appealing. And at the time we were trying to adopt our first child, Dusty. And so we were going through an agency and looking at trying to adopt him, and moving out of state would have really complicated all that. And so we thought, well, maybe we need to try to stay in Texas. And so we started looking around locally in the Texas area, and a guy that had been sort of he was my second and third year resident when I was going through my residency program, and he had moved to Athens. And there was also another guy that I'd gone to school with in Arkansas that had gone through his residency program at Fort Worth, John Peter Smith. And I knew him, and he was good, and he was smart. And he said, why don't you come to Athens? And I said, well, sure, I'll come and go in with you. So we don't have room for you. You come in and go into Athens. So I talked to the other guy who had come here, and he was kind of on his own and doing his own thing. And he said, yeah, come on. There's an older guy here, Norris Holt, was about to retire. So he said, there's going to be an opening here in this clinic. You can just come take over his spot. So that's what I did. We came down here and moved into Athens and hung out my shingle, and the rest is history.
Where's your office when originally? The old hospital was still in service.
Do you know where the old hospital? Yep. That right across there was the Medical Arts Clinic. Do you remember the Medical Arts?
Yes.
I was in the Medical Arts Clinic
Okay.
I was probably there for 10 years. And then we built our own clinic out here. Lakeland Medical Clinic was up up where the orthopedic clinics are now.
Uh-huh.
And we built that clinic, and just kind of was still solo practice. People start sharing call, but we built our clinic and got out of the other clinic and tried to bring in some other people to do OB, and Family Medical was doing their thing. And then about that time, all the managed care programs were coming to town, and they were pitting us against Family Medical Clinic, and they would say, hey, the Family Medical said they'll do this code for $25. Will you do it for less than that? So they were just kind of going back. Well, we'll do it for 22.
Race to the bottom.
Then they'd go back and they said they'd do it for 22. You got any room in that $25 number you got there? So anyway, we sat down together. I called Doug Curran and said, Doug, we need to sit down and talk because we're getting taken to the cleaners here. And so we sat down together and said, let's join together and we'll become one clinic. And then that will we'll be the elephant in the room. We'll be the big dog that they got to deal with if they're going to bring that garbage to town. And it worked. I mean, we were able to have better negotiations as far as prices and what they would pay us and all that sort of thing, and able to be able to stay in practice because they were running us out of business with their rates and everything. So anyway, that worked out really well too. So that was good. And we've, Lakeland, and it became Lakeland Medical Clinic. That's what we've been now for, 25 years, I guess.
Are you still involved with that? So I don't know what happened when a doctor retires.
I sold out. I mean,
okay, I got you.
That is what they basically did was just bought my accounts receivable and bowed out.
Made you a go-jillionaire, I'm sure.
I think I made maybe $20,000 or $30,000. I was no go-jillionaire.
That's a long career. You're doing it a while, and you're still doing it. What does it take for a doctor to require? Is it like a nurse? You just let your license lapse, or does anybody ever do that? Or
you do that at lapse. So you can. There are retirement modes that you can go into, but basically you can't practice anymore once you let it go, because there's requirements for continuing medical education and that sort of thing that you have to go through and maintain in order to show competence. And certainly, I don't know any of us who want to try to keep practicing if we're not competent to practice. I mean,
you would hope not.
And so, I mean, that's one of the things that you always talk to your buddies about that are younger and doing the same thing. Say, look,
keep an eye on me.
You keep an eye on me. If you see me slipping, you need to tell me. I have no desire to hurt anybody. I do not want to do that. We watch each other, and you still, like I still feel like I'm competent, but I've still got other people watching me and being sure.
Don't be afraid to question.
Don't be afraid to say, what are you doing?
Bring me the bad news.
Say, what's wrong with you, dude? What are you thinking?
Wish politicians would kind of do that.
I think it seems like somebody told me that there was a 98-year-old judge that some place they took him off the bench. Finally,
he didn't even know any difference. He's got another bench out here in front of the library.
Set him out in front of the library and let him pronounce judgments on people. I don't know, but it doesn't happen very often.
You were a scout leader. I always liked your. I actually don't remember now if you did like an opening or a closing.
It was closing.
What'd you call it?
It was a closing ceremony. We did the Scout Minute, Scoutmaster's Minute.
Yeah, Scoutmaster Minute. That's what it was. That was good. Were you a scout?
Oh yeah, I was a scout when I was a kid growing up for 1 year.
Okay.
And then the Scoutmaster quit, and nobody wanted to pick it up, and I wasn't up for doing Lone Scout. No. So the finest experience was Sea Base.
See, that's what I was gonna say. That was the one that sounded like so much fun.
Oh. We lived on a sailboat for a week or 10 days. I forget how long it was, maybe 10 days. Yeah. We lived on a sailboat. And we'd go snorkeling every day, and we'd getting shells and exploring these deserted islands. And we got to weather some storms, on the sailboat. And it was an experience. It was more of a vacation than in most vacations I've ever had. It was wonderful. Sleeping on the deck of that thing, just covered with a sheet, with a slow, steady, warm rain raining down on you. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
So you put in your 40 years as a doctor. You deliver a few babies. Is it weird going around town and seeing? I remember you. I remember you.
It's more fun than a barrel of monkeys. I've had experiences where, like yesterday even, this lady, they're 30, 35-year-old lady sitting there in the office, and I'm talking to him, and she says, you delivered me. And I said, oh, did I deliver your baby? She said, no, You delivered me?
Dude, what?
And I said, oh, really? Well, that's interesting. And, you know, and then I go to places like at my daughter's wedding. This man walks up to me, and he said, I just wanted to shake your hand and tell you hello. And he says, do you see that woman with that beautiful young woman standing next to her? He said, that's my wife and daughter. And 26 years ago, you saved both of their lives.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, what? And so he kind of told me the story of what they had an obstetrical problem with it. I mean, it was a very devastating obstetrical problem, required immediate action. Right. They weren't even my patient,
right.
But I happened to be there. And so I took care of the situation for them and stopped the bleeding and by doing a C-section. Just did an emergency C-section, and we got the little girl out, and there they stood.
Isn't that?
And you know, that makes you feel good. That's rewarding.
So.
That's rewarding. And I've got a number of people who have come up to me at some point in time, and of course, you know, I can't remember everybody, but then they'll say, you may or may not remember me, but you saved my life, and then they'll tell me their story, and I think that has meaning for people too, to kind of be able to go back and express some appreciation.
Oh, I bet so. Yeah, that's what's on the fire department. And it's probably hard for people to find out maybe about who actually made a run on somebody but saved their life, but it was very rare for to get any something like that with hey,
well, yeah,
we're in a wreck, we're I fell off, I did something, I was.
But isn't it special when it does
it
happen?
Does it is.
It doesn't happen that often with me either, but it does happen, and it's just real special when it does.
It is. And you hope they grow up to do something good.
When I was in the mountains of Africa, of Ethiopia, up in the doing some medical clinics in this little village. It's out in the middle of nowhere. And this lady comes walking in, and she's in labor. They knew she had twins. And I'm not sure if she had gone into, you could go into town, you could get on a little bus, or you could get a horse cart, and you could go into town. And they had a little clinic in town where they could do some ultrasounds from time to time, and if they had electricity. But it was about a 4-hour donkey cart ride to get into town. And she shows up at this little mountain clinic in labor, and they knew she had twins, and the first one was breech. And of course, there was a little nurse practitioner type. She's probably just a nurse, but an Ethiopian nurse was there. Said, we have to send her into town. It's getting dark. Okay, it's late evening.
By donkey
cart, because it's just a donkey trail. I mean, there's no road.
Right.
There's no road up there. It's just a trail. And they're going to put her in a donkey cart and send her 4 to 5 hours down the road at night, in labor, with twins, breech position, to have them do a C-section. And I said, no, you're not. I said, we're going to deliver them right here, vaginally.
You and I.
And her eyes got big as saucers, and she was, no, we can't do that. She's bad position. She needs a C-section. I said, doesn't matter what she needs. This is what she's going to get. And so I got to deliver those twin babies right there. And then that little nurse was just amazed. Of course, I delivered a bunch of twins before that. Mm-hmm. And I delivered a bunch of breeches. And of course, hardly anybody delivers breeches anymore, but I had done it back early in my career, coming up and done a lot of deliveries like that. And so we got her 2 babies out of there. And the thing I remember most about that, about 4 hours later, she was getting ready to leave and go home. I mean, 4 hours is about as long as they'd keep anybody. And so I walk into this little room just to kind of give them a final little look at before they took off. Of course, they were tiny little babies, but they weren't fed very well during the pregnancy anyway. But they were doing great, and they were robust, and they were breastfeeding good, and everything was looking great. And so I go into this room, and she's kind of sitting over next to a window, and she's kind of covered with a blanket. And I'm thinking, she's got a black blanket over her. Well, I got over there, and it was a white blanket covered with flies. And she got up and took those babies and took off up into the mountain. And that's the memory that is just etched into my memory of thinking about, we think we have it hard in this country. Those folks have it hard. It is almost purely survival of the fittest for so many people in the world. So many people are so much worse off than we can imagine that it's just crazy. I mean, can you imagine? My mother couldn't imagine that there were places in the world that didn't have clean water and electricity. She said, "You mean they don't have clean water to drink?" When I started Hope Springs Water, I said, "No, Mom, they don't." I said, "There's over 1 billion people in the world that don't have access to clean water." She said, "What? You've got to be kidding." I said, "No, I'm not kidding." And they get sick and they die as a result of the water they drink. Of course, that's kind of what moved me to do what we did, and I'm glad we done it. We've helped some people, and I hope we can continue to do that.
I don't know if you remember. It was the last time that I saw you as a patient, but the way I remember it, I don't think you had decided what you wanted to do yet. Was there a time when you were deciding, okay, I'm phasing out of being a doctor, but I want to do something else, and I don't know what that is? Or
Oh yeah, I mean, to take something that you spent 50 years doing,
right,
and then just to suddenly say, "Okay, I'm gonna stop doing that." You got to fill a void somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I was working 60-hour weeks for most of my life, and weekends and nights, and to just suddenly drop that, I might have gone nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, 10 years before I retired is when God laid Hope Springs Water on my heart.
okay,
My first short-term mission trip, medical mission trip, was in 1974. I was still in medical school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through the Southern Baptist Convention Foreign Mission Board. They chose me to go on this health-related mission trip, and I went to the Philippine Islands and spent time with Charles Norwood family. They were medical missionaries in the Philippines at that time on Mindanao, which is the most remote island. It's one of the bigger islands, but it's a very remote island. And they had a little hospital there in a little village called Mati. And he would go out and he'd go on razzoos up into the mountains, and we'd go up into places where the National Geographic reported on this brand new tribe that was up there. Then we talked to the people. Oh, no, they've always been there. We just leave them alone.
Yeah, they're there.
We just don't bother them. They don't bother us. It's all fine. But anyway, that was my first short-term mission trip. And I spent 3 months in the Philippines at that time when I was in medical school, and it was an incredible experience. And at that time, I thought, well, gosh, do I want to be a medical missionary? Is that what God's wanting me to do? Is that what I'm supposed to make happen? But then I knew, I said, well, I've got this commitment to the military, and how's that going to work out? And I'm not married, and what's going to happen there? And there's so many questions that it was just kind of hard to know what was going on. So anyway, I wound up going through the things that we've already talked about, and going in the Navy and getting married, and then coming to Athens. And so I started doing some short-term mission trips after we got to Athens too, after we got established pretty good. And I'd go to South America and Mexico and various places on these 1 to 2 week medical mission trips, and we'd do short-term medical missions and working with people as far as taking care of their whatever health needs we could address with them. And that was all good, but one of the things that always came up and that was always noticed and always discussed on every one of these trips that we would go on was the incredible problem that people in the areas where we worked had with water access and the illnesses that were related to water. As a physician, I saw all those illnesses. I saw cholera. I saw typhoid. I saw amoebic dysentery. I saw all of those kinds of things, and the devastating effects that those things had. Gastroenteritis, diarrhea, vomiting, in small children, it kills them. Just kills them. And so when you see all of that and all that kind of stuff is just kind of swirling around in your head, and you're thinking, gosh, why can't we do something about this? We've got decent water in the United States. Why can't these people have decent water? What's the deal? And you'd go there and they'd be drinking out of these mud holes and these creeks and springs and in various and sundry places, and then you'd see all these illnesses that were a result of what they were doing, and you just think, gosh, and we did some things. We, along the way, when I started going on some trips with the church, we did some things along the way where we kind of would help with some water access issues and that sort of thing. But as far as doing anything that was just really focused and concerted and making it happen, we just really didn't have a real good way of doing that. And after going through all that, our pastor at one point in time, back in I guess it was 2019. No, 2009.
A decade off.
Yeah, 2009. He challenged the members of our church to pray and to ask God to show us something that was of meaning to him that we could help with, that we could jump in and help with. So I start praying that prayer. And at the same time, I was reading a book. I was reading a book by Richard Stearns, who at that time was the president of World Vision US. And the name of his book was The Hole in Our Gospel. And in that book, he talked about a lot of different things that were holes in our gospel. That, in other words, saying that there are things that happen that shouldn't happen with a group of people who are Christians and have concern about things that they shouldn't be an issue. We should be addressing those things. The chapter that really stood out to me and got my attention was the one on clean water. And he had some really staggering statistics in that book. And he said that, that a child died every 10 seconds from a water-related illness. And that women and children spent 200 million hours a day walking back and forth to a distant water source. 200 million hours every day walking back and forth to a water source just to get water for their day's needs. I mean, that's a workforce of 20 million people working 10 hours a day. Yeah. You think there's some wasted effort going on there that could be better spent doing something else that's more productive than just fetching water? And, and talked about the number of parents in the world who had to make the decision every day. Do I give my child potentially contaminated water to drink, or do I watch them just suffer without anything to drink and take a chance on getting sick, or just make them not have, just die of thirst or have horrible thirst problems? Right. Which, what do I do? How do I make that decision? And you got to make that decision every day. That's not right. Yeah. People shouldn't have to do that. All that stuff's kind of running through my head and all this stuff. And so we're about to go down to the valley, down on the Rio Grande. We're going to go down in some of those barrios down there, and I think we're doing a vision clinic or a medical clinic. I can't remember now. It's been a year or two since that was all taking place. But I think it was a medical clinic of some kind, eyes or medical. And so, of course, before we went on any of those trips, we'd go to the store and we'd go to the bottled water section. We'd buy a bunch of bottled water and take it with us, because you can't drink the water down there.
You drink the water.
You get sick. And so I go over to the Brookshires, standing there in the water aisle, and at most of the grocery stores, there's an entire aisle.
There is.
At the grocery store.
Different kinds of water. You want distilled water? You want spring water?
That's devoted to water, bottled water. And you're sitting there, and I'm sitting here thinking, here we are in the United States, where I can go to an abandoned building, and if there's a faucet sitting outside, I can turn it on and drink that water, and it's safe. And I said, and here we're doing this, and I went and looked it up, and it was at that time, this was in 2009, it was an $18 billion industry a year. $18 billion with a B, dollar a year industry to sell bottled water in a country where you can get it out of any tap. And when bottled water first started, I thought it was the craziest idea I'd ever heard. I said, why would you pay
water in a bottle?
Why would you pay money for that when you just got to go to the faucet and you can drink it? What? I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. But it was an industry, and people were able to convince people that they needed that bottled water. And I'm thinking, well, gosh, somebody ought to do something about this issue with all this bottled water and all this money being made off of bottled water, and all these people over here that don't have water to drink. Somebody should do something about that. Somebody ought to do something, right?
I had a chief that always said somebody ought to do something. It was always something, and I said, apparently somebody has a last name too. Somebody else needs to do something.
Else needs to fix this, and that's where I was. I'll tell you, honestly, I was like, somebody ought to do something about that. And honestly, I thought, well, probably somebody is.
It's a big problem. It's a big world. Somebody.
And at that moment, while I was standing there in that water, God talks to us in lots of different ways.
You just gotta listen.
And I think one of the ways that He'll sometimes talk to us is He'll put a question in our head that may have some meaning about some particular thing that He's interested in, that He wants us to be interested in. And the question that He put in my head when I'm standing there looking at, going all the way from this end of the aisle, this end, looking at all this water, is He said, what would it look like if there was a bottle of water on the shelf that was sold on the shelf just like everybody else, and it used all of its profits to try to bring safe water to people living in the developing world, what would that look like? Would that be something that would appeal to me? Is that something I would buy? Would I purchase that water? And I thought, well, yeah, I think I would. So I thought, well, there's probably somebody out there doing that. I just need to find them. I can write them a check, and my conscience will be clear, and I'll move on, right? So I on the internet, and I start looking, and I look, and I found water companies that gave a percentage, and water companies that gave a little bit up to a certain amount, and water companies that gave a penny off of each bottle that they know there was lots of that, but nobody was using all their profits, all their available profits, to try to bring safe water to people living in the developing world. And so, as you can imagine, that kind of left me with a bit of a problem, a dilemma. Well,
now what you going to do?
Yeah, now what am I going to do? And to be honest, I tried to forget it. I said, well, I'm a busy man, right? I'm a family doctor. I work 60 hours a week. I deliver babies. I do surgery. I see people in the clinic. I work on weekends. I don't have time to do that kind of stuff. Well, God didn't let me alone with that. He started waking me up at night with dreams of babies dying of diarrheal illnesses and dehydration. And I'm waking me up in a sweat. That happened about 3 nights in a row. On Thanksgiving Day in 2009, I said, enough. You got my attention. I called Steve Aiken. He's our missions pastor at the church. And I said, Steve, I got something I need to talk to you about. I said, I'm not going to bother you today on Thanksgiving Day, but I want to talk to you. I want to get with you tomorrow and visit with you about something that God's laid on my heart that I need to talk about. And so he said, sure. So we'll meet tomorrow. So the next day we met at the little donut shop up there on Main Street or on Palestine Street and sat there, and I told him the story I just told you. And I fully expected him to say, you've lost your mind. And there's no way we can do that, because I said, we need to start a nonprofit. We need to start a company that bottles water. We need to sell the water. We need to use the profits to drill wells. And I'm a medical doctor, and he's a missions pastor. And how much experience do you think we have in starting bottled water companies or drilling companies to drill water wells?
Not much. Huh?
Somewhere below zero, to be exact. And so, I'm sitting here telling him this, and instead of him saying, you've absolutely lost your mind, he says, man, that's a great idea. Why hadn't we thought of that before? And I'm just
I can see him saying that.
Uh-oh, we got problems now, because
here
we go. Here we go. So I got busy, and I got an incorporated, I'll tell you how naive we were. I got Hope Springs Water Incorporated, just a company and a nonprofit. I think I registered it as a nonprofit corporation.
Right.
Well, I was naive enough to think, well, if you can sell stuff and make a profit, as long as you use the profits for something good, then it's nonprofit, right? Wrong. If you're selling something and making a profit, you are not a nonprofit. And so in about January or so, we finally got the final word, because somebody brought that up at one of the lawyers that was on our board. He brought it and said, I'm not sure you can do this. I said, what do you mean? We're using it for good. We're not keeping the money. We're using it to do good stuff in the world. And he said, yeah, but you're selling this water and you're making money. You're not a nonprofit if you, no, we're using it for good stuff. Anyway, we got another opinion from some lawyer up in Dallas that he knew. And that guy said, you guys are crazy. He said, there's no way you can do that. So we had to form another company. So then we had a for-profit company and a non-profit company, and the for-profit company sells the water. It's a subsidiary of our non-profit, basically owned by the non-profit.
So a non-profit can't sell anything?
Mm-mm. Okay. You can offer things up that people can donate to you for. You've probably seen some of those things where
it's a donation.
Yeah, it's a donation. You're donating.
But you can't go to Brookshire's and donate to get this water off the shelf. You want to do that?
No, you're buying a product.
Right. Okay.
And you're receiving, and even if you say, for example, you went to some other deal and they said, okay, we have these T-shirts that we want to give you, and you can make a donation, and we'd appreciate a donation of $20 or whatever. You can deduct only the amount over what the value of that T-shirt is. So we had to form two corporations to get this going. We again, just totally naive, had no idea how to do any of this. We started off, we finally decided, well, we're just going to fund wells. We're just going to collect money and we're going to fund these wells. We're going to sell this water and we're going to fund these wells. Well, selling the water was the first big problem. And, that's not an easy thing to do. How do you market and how do you find a bottler and how do you get transportation and how, the list just goes on and on and on and on. And all these grocery stores and chains and like Walmarts and all this stuff, they've all got vendors that lined up for miles to try to come sell them stuff and put stuff in their stores. And so trying to get all that done was a chore. It took us several years to get into Brookshire's. I'll never forget. Aiken and I went to the Brookshire's to talk to the water guy first time. I don't remember when it was. It was years and years ago. It was just him and I at that point. We didn't have anybody else really working with it. We had some people on the board, but they were busy doing other things. But Aiken and I went over to the Brookshire's and we go into the water manager, category manager for water, go into his office.
In Athens or
no,
like over
in Tyler. And go into his office and sit down. We had one business card between us. And I said, well, can we have this back when you're done with it? It's the only one we have. And so we told him what was going on. And he said, the first thing you got to remember, water is water. And he stopped when he said, water is water. You've got to give people a good reason to buy your water over somebody else's water. And of course, then he said, and this is your billboard. That's your advertisement. Looking at the label on the bottle.
Was it that label?
No, it was a different label then. It was a lot busier and had a lot more information on it. Mm-hmm. But the people over.
Look pretty? That made the look.
The logo was the same.
Okay.
But actually it wasn't the same because it had some green and some other stuff in it. They changed the colors. And at that time, they didn't start buying our water. They didn't start buying our water till a couple of years later. And I remember going into the guy's office again and talking about Hope Springs and what we were trying to accomplish and this and that, and that we'd been around now for 2 or 3 years. And
same guy. And
we were selling water just through, local companies, local places, and dealerships and automobile dealerships and, just various and sundry places. And no, it was a different guy. Okay. They change them around pretty frequently at Brookshire's. And he said something about marketing for things that are beneficial to people. I forgot the name of what that kind of marketing is called, but he said something about that. He said, this could work. You might be able to sell your water based on doing good. And so they started buying it. And they bought it fair for a while, but it didn't really go great until 5 or 6 years ago. I was in Africa. I was in Ethiopia on a missional trip, drilling trip. I get this text from the water guy, and I don't really want to use his name, I guess, but his name's Colton. He was the category manager for water at Brookshire's. Colton's from Athens. I delivered Colton. And he had some problems at birth, and he says, I saved his life. And he said, and he's a Christian man, and he said, I got to looking, and I saw your bottle of water sitting on my desk. And he said, I got to thinking about that. And he said, is this an Esther moment for me? Have I been put in this position to try to help Hope Springs Water do what it is that they're supposed to do and to help out the people who don't have water? And so he really went to bat for us. I mean, and we got into all the Brookshire stores, all the Super One stores, and he helped us with doing sales and doing specials and doing buy one get one type promotions. And I mean, he was unbelievably helpful.
Man for the job.
As long as he stayed in that position, we did great.
Yeah.
We're doing okay now, but our sales have fallen off a lot since he left that spot. But he moved to a different spot with Super One, and we're doing really good in Super One now. So, anyway, it's we're still want to try to get back in Brookshire's and like to get into HEB. Mm-hmm. But those are hard markets to break into, especially when you're just
a competitive shelf space.
Oh my gosh, competitive shelf space, and the margin on a case of water is just terrible. That was one of the things the guy told us the first time we went into is, boy, you picked a bad product if you're trying to make a lot of money, because he said there's just no margin on water, because a lot of people use it as a loss leader. A lot of these companies, like Coca-Cola, they'll give their water away as long as you buy their other drinks and other stuff that they've got. So, I mean, it's hard to compete with that. Are marketed or should be marketed to a particular group of people who want to do good with their money, if they're going to buy a bottle. And we've always said, if you don't buy bottled water, don't buy bottled water. Don't buy our bottled water. Send us a donation. We'll take a check.
Yeah.
But if you're going to buy bottled water, why would you not buy this bottled water? Why would you not buy one that's going to do good with its profits? I mean, we've been involved in water projects for years, and what we discovered after a couple of years of funding wells was that there were a lot of people that wanted to go and drill wells. They wanted to go and have the experience and to see the place. And we decided that, they become good ambassadors for Hope Springs Water, or for the problem, if not for us, at least to try to help solve the problem. And if they go and they see the problem firsthand and they interact with those people that are suffering with those problems, they're going to be much more likely to go back and talk it up.
I wonder if somebody from Brookshire's, has anybody from Brookshire's ever been on?
We've invited them multiple times, but they've just never been able to make it. But we'd love for them to go. Fellow Brookshire's, I'd love for you to go. But we'd love to take some of them with us, because I think it's life-changing. I mean, most of the people we take on these trips, it's a life-changing experience. I mean, we've either drilled wells or been associated with funding wells, or we did a rain catchment program in Rwanda, where we paid for them to dig out this great big hole and made it and concreted it in, and then had this huge water catchment deal for the rains during the rainy season. They catch this water, and they a big process for this whole area utilized that water. We were associated in Sierra Leone. We funded there was a huge outbreak of cholera in Sierra Leone, and most of it came from this one big major water source. People had to have it. There was no other place for them to get their water, so they were all going there and getting this water and winding up cholera. And a lot of people were dying, and so we funded a deal where there was a little silver impregnated deal that they were able to put in this water, purified the water if they left
the whole big catchment.
No, for each
little container.
Each person.
Okay.
You drop it into their container, and it was reusable, so they could come back and use it many times.
Really?
Yeah. So we were able to do that. It was like 50,000 people that were affected through that. So we were real happy about that. We've done safe water projects, and we did in Belize. We recovered probably 50 to 80 wells that had been abandoned because of rust. I mean, the water in that part of the world is fairly caustic, and it caused a lot of rust in the metal parts of some of these. Even they were galvanized metal, but they still would rust, and the water would turn red and was bitter, and so give people belly cramps, and so they wouldn't drink it. Took out those metal parts, and we replaced them with PVC and stainless steel. Recovered those wells, and were able to, like I said, Bruce Hines was the primary guy behind all of that, getting all of that done in Belize. And we've now got two or three drilling rigs in Guatemala. And this next month, we've got a group of guys going to Guatemala to drill wells in that region, up in sort of the low mountainous region of Guatemala, and then in some of the lowlands on the east coast of Guatemala. We've got a couple of drilling rigs in Nicaragua. We just sent two really nice, big drilling rigs that are capable of going 600 to 800 feet deep if necessary. It's capable of air drilling, hammer drilling if necessary in Nicaragua. And we've got teams that go down there on a regular basis. Of course, Ethiopia, we have our own nonprofit organization in Ethiopia with our own employees. Well, actually, they're their own employees, but we fund everything for them, so that they're able to do what they do. They do the drilling, and we go over and join them a few times a year, but we've committed to the government of Ethiopia to provide between 18 and 30 wells every year. We've started sanitation projects in Ethiopia where we're doing toilets in the schools. This is an interesting story on women's health and women's menstrual management. One of the things that there's so many things that we're not aware of being from a developed country, as far as the problems that are experienced in underdeveloped countries. We were on a trip doing a deworming program and teaching health education in some of the schools in this region of Ethiopia. One of the teachers came up to one of the folks that was on the trip with us and asked them, "What do you have to empower women?" Think about that. What do you have to empower women? What was he talking about? I mean, we didn't know what he was talking about. And so we said, well, we'll think about it. And so we talked around and we started asking around and trying to figure out what exactly he was talking about. And what we discovered in that area, there's no stores, there's no place to buy menstrual management, pads and whatever that women have to manage their menstrual cycles when they have them. And women have them every month.
Yeah.
And like clockwork, starting around 11, 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
And all these kids are in school, and most of these girls don't even own a pair of underwear. I mean, there's no place to get that sort of thing. And so these girls were using leaves and grass and all kinds of things to try to manage their menstrual cycles. And the vast majority of them wound up just not going to school during that time.
Okay.
They'd miss school for a week every month. So a fourth of their schooling they're missing out on. And what would then happen, consequently, is many of them would wind up dropping out of school because they got so far behind. And so that's what he was talking about when he started talking about that. And the other thing was with the sanitation, with toilets. And, their toilet system was awful. But anyway, with the menstrual management, so we started looking around trying to find a menstrual management product that was washable and reusable and would allow these girls to stay in school during their menstrual cycle. And we found it. And we've got groups of women all around this area who are sewing those kits. That costs about $10 to make a kit, not counting the time and effort of these women sewing these things. And it's a Velcro pad. They get like 5 pads, and they get 2 pair of underwear with Velcro sewed in so that they can put the pads in them. And they get a towel and some soap and that sort of thing, and we give these away when we go on these trips. We talk to these women about their bodies. These girls, most of them don't have a clue what's going on when their menstrual cycle starts. It scares them to death probably. Sure. And so we talk to them about it. Even the young girls, we start talking to them about what's going to happen to their bodies as their bodies change, and talk to the older girls about their menstrual cycles, and we have these kits that we give to them so that they're able. And what's really cool is we'll drive through these villages and you'll see all these things hanging out on the line, and that they've washed them and they're drying them out, and so they're using them, and they last 2 to 3 years. So I mean, these girls have this for the 2 or 3 years while they're in school. And like I said, we go back to these same places fairly often, not fairly often, maybe once a year, and so we can replace them if they have issues or problems. And so, I mean, it's just been an eye opener. And now we've gotten into agreement with the government of Ethiopia to start building toilets, gender specific toilets, so that you don't have one outhouse that's shared by both boys and girls, and it usually doesn't have a door, and so the girls just don't go to the bathroom.
Kind of like Philmont.
Yeah. Either they don't go to the bathroom or they don't go to school. Yeah. And so, we're trying to make it so that it's something that they can have some dignity. And the same thing with their menstrual cycles, giving those girls some dignity with their menstrual cycles. A lot of those girls it wasn't uncommon to go into a school and these girls walking around, they'd have blood on their dresses and stuff, just because they couldn't manage their menstrual cycle. And that's got to be embarrassing. I mean, there's no dignity in that. And so being able to provide that for those girls has just been... It's been great, and to see the looks on their faces and the smiles, when they get their kits, and it's really cool.
Why do you think, it's clear that it's the simplest solutions make the biggest difference, clean water and the ability to have some hygiene. Why is it that so many people are still in need of it? It seems like a government would realize that and would realize the benefit for a population, and that it was simple in today's, with the advancements that we have today, to be able to do that for more and more people. And it seems like the only reason not to do it is, I don't know, it seems like it would be sinister almost.
Yeah. It has
to
to.
Not
you hit the nail on the head when you said it seems to you like leadership would do something about it. And there's two things. One is that unfortunately there are a lot of leaders who don't want their people to do well, because that's how they stay in power. If you've got a group of people who are struggling to survive every day, they don't have time to think about how corrupt you are and all the other things that are going on through your government. Fortunately, I don't think that's a large number of those countries, but it's there. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how they control their populace, is they keep them poor and they keep them sick and they keep them without things. But then I think there are also that group of governments who just don't have the money. And then there's also buried in every government program is corruption, including ours. Sure. Surprise, surprise.
Absolutely.
And so there's corruption at all levels in all those government type, those governments throughout the world. And you hope, if you're a good leader, and there's lots of good leaders out there that are trying to do the right thing and trying to get that done through the bureaucracy of everything that has to take place, I'm sure is quite intimidating for a lot of those guys. And
Sure.
and we've met leaders in all these countries where we work who I feel are genuinely interested in trying to do what's best for their people, and they just struggle with it all the time. It's trying to get things done under a burgeoning bureaucracy, just like we see in this country. When we first went to Ethiopia, the president of Ethiopia was a man who had come from one of these villages up in the mountains there around where we have our base of operations in Bantu, Ethiopia. Just a very poor farmers area, lived dirt floors, mud huts, grass roof. That's where he grew up. And he was the president of Ethiopia. And he's the one who invited us to come in and to start doing these things. And he said that you pick a place where you want to build a school and I'll give you 10 acres. And you build a school and you start teaching these kids. And he said, and if you want to drill water wells, you just come drill them. I'll take care of running interference for you. He was a figurehead. He really had no control over any purse strings. He was a leader of the people. He would go to all the official functions, but he was able to give permission to do these things. He was able to grant some of these. If you're going to build a school, I can get you land. If you're going to do some waterworks, I can kind of help move the skids for you so you can do these water projects that you want to do.
Well, good for him. He knew how to push things through.
He was an older guy, and in fact, he invited us to the presidential palace, and we all had dinner at the presidential palace a couple of times. He was just a nice old man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was a nice man.
He found a way to do some good through y'all.
Mm-hmm. But it's been a trip, Paul.
It's been an inspiring story. I mean, I buy your water.
Oh, good.
And
Thanks.
Melissa wanted me to tell you that whatever you've done to the new bottle, she likes them much better.
There's more plastic in them.
They stand up. The other ones, you like put them in.
Yeah. And that was because they didn't have enough plastic in them. And it's cost. I mean, you know,
Sure.
if the bottler can save an extra eighth of a cent on a bottle, he's going to save an extra eighth of a cent on a bottle, you know, because he bottles billions of them every year.
Right.
Water's water.
Water
Paul.
is water.
But, you know, I just tell people, I say, you know, if you're going to buy water, it's okay. So you're going to pay a few pennies more per bottle if you're going to buy Hope Springs water. If you're going to buy water anyway, buy one that you're going to do some good with.
I agree.
Why would you want to buy it? I'm not going to call any
I don't
names.
buy a ton of bottled water.
No.
I mean, every now and then I need, you got a faucet. You got a water hose. You got someplace you can put your hand in the sink.
That's where I usually drink my water. I don't buy a lot of bottled water. But if I'm going to buy it, I buy this one.
I definitely buy Hope Springs. And you've got the deal with Amazon. Y'all are set up. I don't know how much y'all get. Every now and then I get an email saying, Hope Springs got this much.
You're talking about Amazon Smile?
Yes.
They stopped it.
What?
Yeah. They just discontinued it.
The whole deal?
Whole deal.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the reasoning behind that?
I guess they needed more money.
More robots.
Yeah, that guy's not making enough money.
Yeah, he needed to buy up more warehouse space.
But anyway, yeah.
Okay.
They don't do it anymore. But we did. We did pretty well with Hope Springs water. I mean, we were making a few $1,000s a year through that. $1,000 is $1,000.
Yeah.
It costs us about between $8,000 and $10,000 to drill a well. And it costs us about that same amount to do a sanitation project. If there's anybody that has an interest in, say, hey, my rich uncle Bob died recently and left me this big chunk of change, and I want to kind of do something for him that would be good, we'll drill you a well. And we'll put a sign on it that says Uncle Bob's Well.
There you go.
And so, I mean, funding our wells we still depend mostly on donations. We get some money from our water sales, but trying to get water sales up to the point that it's necessary to be a significant source of income, it's hard.
It's got to come through grocery chains, I would imagine, pretty much, does it?
For the most part, grocery chains, I mean, there are these distributors, and trying to break into a distributorship of some kind, that takes our water, to get your water on their truck that they take around to all the mini marts and the moms and pops and the gas stations and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. That's tough.
Tougher than Brooks.
Because, I mean, their shelf space is really limited. Yeah. It's the back of a truck. Trying to break into that deal is also somewhat difficult. But, boy, if you ever could, that would be a big market, too, is the mini marts and the mom and pops and the gas stations.
Mm-hmm. Again, we're in East Texas, so you're in Brookshire's. You're in
Super One.
Super One.
That's a subsidiary of Brookshire's. They own Super One Foods.
So you got your eye on some other biggies.
No, we're looking at it. We're hoping we're going to make a run at HEB again at the end of this year or the first of next year. They make all of their decisions about their whole year All those decisions are made as far as what they're going to carry and where it's going to be and how much they're going to buy and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera is all made in the first couple of months of the year.
Okay.
January through maybe the middle of March. And if you're not in there by then, forget it. You know, HEB in the past, and as far as I know, they've stopped doing it unless they're going to start it up again this year. The year that COVID hit was the year that we were going to go to they had invited us to come to their Taste of Texas extravaganza, for lack of a better word. It's a deal where they invite products that are, quote, made in Texas, or that are the Texas products that are not well-known, big, everybody knows about them products but are made in Texas, and they invite them to this big show, either in San Antonio or wherever they have it, and they bring their products, and you set up a table, and you set up all your information and what you have and what you do, and then all of the, I guess, category managers and supervisors and the upper office people from HEB go through there, tasting everything and looking at everything and talking to people and all this sort of thing. And out of that, they choose one out of each category that they allow to come in, one product, and they feature that product for the entire following year. I mean, they give them end cap, they give them free advertising, they give them marketing tips, they do all kinds of things to try to really boost and push that product over that year. And the year that we were going to go to that is when COVID hit and they didn't have it. And as far as I know, they haven't had it since. But that would be a place.
Really big.
But we've called HEB, we've emailed HEB, we've talked to people we knew who knew somebody at HEB. It's like getting into Fort Knox.
Somebody's got to get in.
Yeah.
HEB is selling water.
Yeah, they're selling water.
Maybe.
And I personally think that Howard Butts would be very pleased to sell Hope Springs water.
I think he would.
He's a good Christian man, and he would be happy to be doing that.
I think he would too. Maybe somebody with HEB will hear this podcast.
That would be nice. I would love to hear from him.
Put in a good word for him.
I would love to hear from him. I would love to come talk to him and share with them and tell them what kind of a difference they could make in people's lives.
Well, maybe you already have on this podcast.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I hope so.
I hope so too. It's been an interesting conversation.
I'm not sure I grew up wanting to do interesting things, but I'll tell you, this has been a party. I mean, it's been fun. I mean, it's been hard. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's been some.
That's almost struggle is where you find meaning, right?
That's right. That is exactly right. That's the reason women have childbirth, because that's where you find meaning in that child. Otherwise, you'd kill them all, right?
Just kick them to the wolves.
But no, I think that you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. And I've read that several places, that our real meanings in life are the important lessons that we learn in life come through struggle. And I can tell you that I've learned a lot.
I remember Tom Hanks' line in the movie about the girls' baseball team, the women's baseball team in the World War II. The hard is what makes it great. It's too hard. The hard is what makes it great.
Hard is what makes it great. Because if you accomplish something and it didn't cost you anything, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But if it cost you, if it was hard, if it cost you something mentally or physically, then it's worthwhile. Yeah. Then it has meaning. Then you remember it. Tell
people where they can go, how they can best donate. You've said that buying a case of water is not the best way to do that.
No, I didn't say that.
Not the best.
It's not the best, but but it helps. And the other thing that it does when they buy a case of water is they have our billboard, and when they pass our billboard out to their friends, to the baseball team.
What's this Hope Springs? I've never seen that.
Well, the other thing people can do is they can go to their wherever they buy groceries, if it's HEB or if it's Central Market or if it's a local 5 and dime or Brookshire's. And if Hope Springs water isn't on the shelf, go to the manager. Say, dude, why don't you have this here? And if enough people do that, they'll do it. Now, another way people can help is if they want to donate. What we're really looking for are people that donate regularly. A once a month $10 or $20 or whatever, so that we have a budget that we can work through.
Sure.
But not to say if someone wants to give us $1,000, we won't take it. But if people would really like to get involved and be a part of what we're trying to do, then donate regularly. Do a monthly deal where you send us 10 or 20 or 50 or $100 or whatever you can afford to do, and we will use it wisely, I promise you. And our books are open. All of our finances are on our website. You can go right to them and look at our financial report for every year that we've been in existence. We go through there's a governing organization that looks at all those kinds of things to see look at your transparency and your how you utilize money and what percentage of your money goes into administration and all this sort of thing. And you get rated, and we've got the highest rating that they have. So I mean we're doing it right. We've said we were going to do it right from the beginning, and we've done it right from the beginning. We're going to continue to do it right. One of our big goals of the water sales is that it covers all of our administrative costs, so that every penny that people actually donate to us to go into programs goes into programs, and not 1 cent is spent on administration, on people that have to do the nuts and bolts, pushing
just
the papers.
Just to keep it going.
But if anybody has questions about Hope Springs Water, go to our website, hopespringswater.org. It's easy, hopespringswater.org.
Up into the website. So if they were going to contact somebody from that website, should you email through the website, or should you call somebody?
There are emails and there are phone numbers.
Okay.
And both of them is, there's an info at Hope Springs Water, there's Amanda at Hope Springs Water, there's Rob at Hope Springs Water. Phone number. The phone number is on the website. And you call it up and someone will return that phone call if she doesn't answer it. Amanda is our main office person, and she's outstanding. She does a fantastic job, and she is very diligent to follow up with people that want to know more about Hope Springs Water. She believes in what we're doing with Hope Springs Water, and she works very hard to try to make it all happen. Rob is our executive director, and Rob is very devoted to making Hope Springs Water the best nonprofit organization around. And, we're all kind of amazed that, we've got an international relief agency right here in Athens, Texas. God has blessed Hope Springs Water from the get-go, and he continues to bless us. And we're convinced that our job is to work like it's all up to us, and have faith like it's all up to him. And that's what we're supposed to do.
Who do you think would be good to be on the podcast?
Doug Curran. The way that Hope Springs Water kind of got started was on his front porch, because as God was presenting all this to me, and all this kind of stuff was working through my head and through my heart and through the actions of everything. What do you do next? How do you do this? How do you set up a nonprofit? How do you talk? Who do you talk to about bottling? All that kind of stuff. I walk with Doug probably 4 or 5 days a week. We walk for about an hour and 15 minutes. Early in the morning. We sit out on his front porch and drink a cup of coffee, and then we take off and walk.
Okay.
And we sit out on that porch, and while we're sitting there, we talk about stuff. And with Hope Springs Water, we talked about all of it and trying to figure it all out. And was this something I really ought to do? Was God really calling me to do this, et cetera, et cetera? And it happened. And then the same thing happened with him as we talked about healthcare. His vision was there were so many people in our area. There are over 45,000 people just in our service area that have no access to health care, no insurance, nobody they can go to in a health crisis other than an emergency room, which is horrible care. Nothing against ER doctors, but that's not how you take care of people. Take care of emergencies that way, not long-term health care.
Right.
And so he had a real burden for all that. And as we talked through all that, this idea for him to start this federally qualified health clinic came up. And he helped me with Hope Springs Water, and I'm helping him with the federally qualified health clinic. And so what we call his front porch, the birthing center.
That's cool.
And because it's birthed two nonprofit organizations that are helping a lot of people around the world and locally. So it's a good thing. We have a good time together. We've spent a lot of years together and brainstormed on a lot of things and shared lots of issues as we've gone along, and shared our heartaches and shared our burdens and shared our dreams. And it's been awesome. Yeah.
CTED Mettetal, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure.